a little bit about skin today and how hypnotherapy can help you with your skin, which sounds kind of crazy, but it's absolutely true that when we have any kind of trauma or dis-ease or negative thoughts in our body, it gets trapped in your tissues or it has to release in some way. And inflammation of any kind is a really common one. Um, and that's why sometimes you can get acne. Now, I've got personal experience of this because I was one of 6 children and not one of them had acne like I had acne. They all had lovely skin, and I was the last one along. And I had acne terribly around the age of 18. I went to Australia for a few weeks, and I came back and sort of, as a reaction or something triggered like worse acne than usual, and acne that was scarring as well. And it was a bit of a mystery because, as I say, none of the family had bad skin. And my mum, very much liked to say, well, I can't understand it because I never had acne, which was most helpful when you're the one person in the family with it. And I think a lot of people get that. There's kind of that shame attached to having acne, that thing of people assuming you're unclean, or, you think people think that you're ugly and things like that, and you become very self-conscious as well, and you try a million and one things in order to cope with it. I mean, at 18, my mum was telling me things like wash your face with fairy household soap, and the other thing I think we tried was sturgeon, which was some form of washing powder that apparently, mum thought slap some of that on and you'll be all right. And I ended up sort of having to go to a clinical specialist with the National Health Service here in England. And at that point in time, the thinking was very much it didn't matter what you eat. I mean, this was a very educated professor, kind of highly thought about rather, in the field of acne and skin. And he told me it didn't matter what I ate, I could eat whatever I liked and it wouldn't do anything about my acne, which now we'd kind of think was pretty bonkers, really. But at that time, that was the thinking. So I spent a long time, a good, couple of years or so. I actually spent my 21st birthday in an acne clinic. Well, they experimented with one thing or another, and eventually I did have Roaccutane, which, in hindsight now, I would never have done. I wouldn't have put myself through that. But the thing is, it remained a mystery. And actually, after that Roaccutane, it did clear up for a spell, but it did come back when I hit menopause. And I think that's quite a common thing, really. And I wish I'd have had rapid transformational therapy, which is what I do. I wish I'd known about that when I had that second bout of acne, because again, it was terribly upsetting. And especially when you're in the thick of menopause and your emotions are all over the place anyway. I mean, you can feel really quite dark in the thick of menopause. And I was having acne again, paired with rosacea, and was getting scarring again. And again, it was just that thing of put you on antibiotics. But what happened was I couldn't get off the antibiotics because every time I did, then the acne just came back. So I'm going to link in reference to acne in your skin and what you can do about it. I've got a couple of blog posts that I think you might find very helpful, which kind of detail a little bit about my journey and what I found helpful. I managed to wean myself off antibiotics. Again, it was another skin consultant, and I was paying privately at that time, couldn't solve why I had acne, and the general consensus was, well, then you'll have to stay on antibiotics. But we know that's not a solution. Who wants to stay on antibiotics? It's kind of the worst thing that you can do for yourself, destroying your gut microbiome, because that's part of the problem with acne, that your gut microbiome isn't doing so well. But what also is not always talked about is the psychological aspects of it, and the emotional. And, my opinion, having been through it and having done a lot of work, is that there's a lot about it that is trauma and underlying beliefs. And sometimes, I mean, for me particularly, I think it was a last-ditch effort to get some prioritization in the family, because as I mentioned, I was one of 6 children, and I struggled with things from being very young because I didn't get the emotional nurturing that I needed. And I fell into this pattern of realizing or subconsciously thinking that I needed something bad to happen in order to get any kind of attention, because that's the way that it seemed to work in our family. So my body tended to fall into these, and my mind tended to fall into these patterns of finding something new and different that was negative in order to try and get me some attention. And it is my absolute belief that acne was one of those things, because it's literally right on your face. You can't avoid acne. People look at you and there's a thought about it, isn't there? And really, there was only my mum that you could go to in our family, because my dad was very hands off. So when it came back, kind of part of that was that there was a lot of unresolved trauma, and I didn't really, like I say, I managed to get myself off the antibiotics and start down that healing journey with my skin. But it wasn't until I actually had rapid transformational therapy and uncovered that underlying belief about constantly seeking some form of way to get me some notice, that it made the connection that acne was just another part of that. I managed to help me identify there were various times throughout my life where something negative occurred. And in hindsight, you could see that it was at a time when attention was scarce. So I tried to get it in another way, but all of that was happening subconsciously. I didn't consciously know what any of it was about. If you consciously knew, you would stop it. So it's not until you do that subconscious work and figure some things out. So what I would invite you to do is, if you are dealing with acne or rosacea, psoriasis, eczema, any kind of inflammation in your skin, ask yourself initially, could there be a subconscious reason for this? Is there kind of like any kind of secondary gain I might have by having that thing? And you might think that sounds pretty crazy. Why in any sense would I choose to have this thing? But your subconscious is always working to fulfill some kind of intention for you. And if it sees that you're maybe not getting attention, you're not being prioritized, nobody seems to notice you, or it can even be that there's something actually to be scared of in your environment, or you might have had some kind of sexual assault or sexual abuse. And there's a thought subconsciously that having bad skin, that looking a certain way might keep you safe. That's another aspect to it that people often don't consider. But it would be worth, if you're struggling with acne or any kind of skin irritation, skin inflammation, to do that subconscious work and find out if there could be an underlying belief behind it. Because the thing about your subconscious mind is, when we give it a different directive and tell it to do something differently, it will start work straight away. So you can have actual rapid results. I mean, I was getting quite bad with rosacea, and I don't have rosacea at all now. I don't have any redness around my nose or on my chin. It was here and here, and it was tracking down my whatever these lines are here, those folds. It was doing that, and I was getting so subconscious about it, so self-conscious about it all. So like I say, what I would like you to consider is think about what could be behind the acne. You might be thinking, it's my gut, it's my skin, it's bacteria, it's this, that and the other. But if you're stuck on antibiotics and antibiotics isn't resolving it, and you're doing some quite drastic things to yourself in the name of healing acne or one of these conditions, or you're constantly having to slather yourself in some kind of cream or potion, or your life starts revolving around it even, because this kind of thing takes minutes, hours every day to maintain. You're always doing face masks or exfoliating or going for facials, whatever it is. It can take over your life, these kinds of skin things. Please consider whether there might be a subconscious aspect to it, because you literally can change this thing really, really fast if that's where it comes down to. So it's always worth investigating your past trauma, your upbringing, what's going on, especially if, like me, there's no history of it, nobody else has had a run-in with bad skin, mum and dad didn't have bad skin, then there's something else going on. If it's a bit of a mystery, remember that your subconscious mind always knows. So just in the description below, I will put a couple of blog posts in, so please do think to watch them. And remember, you can always book a free call with me at any time too, and I will put that link in. I hope that was of interest to you, and I will talk to you later.